Good morning, or depending on when you're watching this, good afternoon, good evening, or good night. My name's Ross, and as always told, out of Voice Radio. So today, we're going to be looking at a supporter card from a character that has never had a supporter card ever in the Pokemon trading card game. It's Grimsley, one of the Elite Four from Black 2 and White 2. He's making his debut in the Pokemon TCG. Is the card any good? And the answer is, yeah. You know what? I think it probably is. So, with that borne in mind, let's go and say, hey, Mr. David Hochmann of RappelmannTCG over on Facebook, what does it actually do? And according to David, it reads, move up to 3 damage counters from one of your opponent's Pokemon to another of your opponent's Pokemon. You're moving damage counters. And straight off the bat, this is probably going to sound vaguely familiar, because this is Absol. This is Absol from Roaring Skies. Now, because it's a supporter rather than a coming into play ability, there are huge advantages. We'll get to all of them as we go along. But one of the things to mention right off the bat here, this is Absol from Roaring Skies, which did see a fair bit of play in its own right. That had the ability Cursed Eyes. When you play this Pokemon from your hand onto your bench, you may move 3 damage counters from one of your opponent's Pokemon to another of his or her Pokemon. Now, one of the really important things to point out straight off the bat here, according to David, this is up to 3, whereas Absol is 3. And believe me, ladies and gentlemen, that makes a rather gigantic difference. This is huge. This is a giant difference. Because sometimes you don't want to get rid of 3 damage counters. Sometimes you want to get rid of 1 damage counter. Well, great news. This totally allows you to do so. So why would you use something like this? Why would you want to move damage around? And there's 2 general reasons straight off the bat why we'd want to do so. First of all, to KO a Pokemon. Simple as that. So let's say, for argument's sake, you're using a Buzzwole and you do 160 damage to a Tapu Lele. Well, that's annoying because Tapu Lele's actually got 170 HP. Now, hopefully, you as the Buzzwole player will be able to find a Diancie Prism Star or a Choice Band to do that extra damage, but let's say you can't. And it might not be this exact example, but this kind of stuff happens all the time. Doing almost enough damage to get a KO. Well, that's alright. This jumps in and means you do get the KO. Now, at this stage, there's probably a bunch of you thinking, yeah, Wassy, good point, but what if they use an Ace Roller? What if they use a Max Potion? Generally speaking, and those cards, especially Ace Roller, are played a lot nowadays, what happens if your opponent just gets rid of this? You do 160, you wait a bit, and your opponent goes, oh, cheers for that, heals the Pokemon. That's a little bit of a pain. You don't have to wait. So what you can do is move damage from one Pokemon to another and then get the KO. You need to do 240 to get a one-hit KO on a Pikachu and Zekrom. You're only doing 210, so Grimsley moves the 3 damage counters over, then you do that 210 and get the KO. That means that your opponent cannot heal. That is one of the main reasons for this. The other thing is just preventing an overkill. Because you know what? Doing too much damage to get a KO sucks. If you've got a Pokemon, let's say there's a Tapu Lele with 140 damage on, and you bring up a Buzzwole with a Diancie Prism Star on the field, you're doing 50. Well, that's actually kind of annoying, because you don't want to do 50, you want to do 30. So it'd be really nice if you could move 2 of the damage counters off, and then get the KO, and then at least you've saved that 2 damage. And incidentally here, this is why it's so much better than Absol. With Absol, in this example, your only option would be either move 3 damage off and then you don't get the KO on Tapu Lele, or don't bother and then you get the overkill. What's great about this is that you can move the 2 damage counters over and then you get the exact right amount of damage here. Because make no mistake about it, right? If this works, you're essentially doing 3 damage. Now, Greninja, when you evolve up into it as a one-off ability, drops 3 damage counters. Choice Band does an extra free damage to your opponent's EX and GX Pokemon. The new Incineroar, which is going to be coming along in Unbroken Bonds, allows all of your Pokemon to do an extra 30 damage. So please, ladies and gentlemen, make no mistake about it. If you're essentially doing an extra free, this is good. Now, it doesn't do an extra free. So let's say, for argument's sake, you're playing a Blacephalon deck, and you're just getting giant one-hit KOs. This is an absolutely pointless card you'll never want to use. If you're always getting a one-hit KO, there's never any damage on the field. And this doesn't do damage, this moves damage. And moving damage can help you get a KO. Moving damage can help you keep damage on the field so that you're not getting a KO and over-KOing and all of that. And this is brilliant. But in a deck where you're getting one-hit KOs, this becomes a pointless card. Please don't play it. But a deck like Buzzwole, yes, I've been using that as an example deliberately, a deck like Buzzwole is going to absolutely adore this. Because you're constantly doing that 30 damage using Jet Punch. You're going to constantly get that 30 damage on the bench. And actually, they might not have the right Pokemon on the bench. They might wait to bench this Pokemon until such a time as you have stopped using Jet Punch. Because Jet Punch, right, great attack in the early game, but then you kind of run out of steam. And then, well, you don't run out of steam so much as if you keep doing that, you'll run out of steam. What you really need to do is get the bigger attack rolling, playing cards like Beast Ring. Well, ladies and gentlemen, at that point, your opponent can go, yay, they've stopped hitting the bench. Down I go. In comes this. The fact of the matter is, Absol saw a lot of play. Absol saw a really quite large amount of play. It was a popular card that people used. So there is absolutely no reason whatsoever that this would then not also see quite a lot of play. Because it's just as good. And like I've said, it's actually even better. Now, there are some other uses for this. So let's say, for argument's sake, the new Weezing. The new Weezing's got a really nice ability that does 10 damage to each of your opponent's basic Pokemon between turns. But then the attack does 40 damage base, and then 20 damage to each of your opponent's Pokemon that already has damage on it. And this isn't new. I mean, Gengar Level X was doing this years ago. But the point is, you sometimes get attacks like this. Attacks where what you really want to do is get damage on a whole bunch of your opponent's Pokemon. Compound Pain, it was called. Well, the great news is, this allows you to spread the damage around a bit more. Yes, obviously you could use Tapu Koko. Obviously you could. But sometimes you don't want to use Tapu Koko. Sometimes you want to use Buzzwole. You want to be hitting for weakness. You want to be taking advantage of Diancie Prism Star to do an extra 20 damage to the active. Sometimes, ladies and gentlemen, you don't actually want to be using Tapu Koko. And something like this comes in beautifully. Make no mistake about it. I don't think this is an every deck kind of card. This really doesn't strike me as the kind of thing that's going to go into every deck you play. This is a niche card. Sometimes you will be just short, or you'll be expecting to be just short of a KO. So this comes in nicely, because you can move it over. But again, that is only going to work when you're playing a deck that does not one-hit KO. If you are one-hit KOing, no. Not going to work, ladies and gentlemen. Not going to work. But if you've got a deck which isn't always one-hit KOing, where you're going to be struggling to hit some numbers, this is great. Where you're going to be overkilling after hitting the first time, so you can save it, this is going to be great. If you've got something like Weezing, whereby you want as many Pokemon damage as possible, this is going to be great. And then, of course, you've got stuff like Magikarp. Magikarp, and we have seen Gyarados see some success, incidentally. Magikarp's got 30 HP, but it's also got a really annoying ability that says you cannot damage it when it's on the bench. That's actually kind of annoying. So you couldn't use something like, I'm using Jet Punch just as an example, there's a million others, but it's nice to stay with one. You cannot use Jet Punch to damage Magikarp on the bench, but what you can do is use Jet Punch to damage something else and move it over. This is nice. Now look, couple things we need to mention. It's your supporter for the turn, so you can't use something like Cynthia. But you can search it out with something like Tapu Lele, and you can recover it with stuff like Palpad, or the recently revealed Mewtwo, link in the description. There is a lot to like about this. Not a perfect card, not an every deck kind of card, but certainly a really nice card that is going to see a fair amount of play and a fair amount of love. So let's give it between 3 and 4 Wassies. We don't give half Wassies. That would be barbaric. I think it's slightly better than one you're going to put in your binder just in case, but I do not think it is an every deck kind of card. Not bad for a first attempt though, Grimsley. Not bad at all. But I would very much like to know what you think about this. So please do let me know in the comment section. Go nuts. But please do remember the rule, ladies and gentlemen. Be nice, would you? And then make sure you like this video, subscribe to this channel, follow me on Twitter at the Wassie, and Twitch for some live action at twitch.tv/PTCGRadio. If you want to support the channel, get some bonus podcasts and all that, head on over to patreon.com/PTCGRadio, where you can do exactly that. And please do make sure you're checking out youtube.com/WassiePlays, where we talk about other games and have a lot of fun doing so. But by far the most important thing, as always, look after yourselves till next time. Thank you very much for watching. My name's Ross, and you've been watching PTCG Radio.